Hi, in this tutorial I will show you how to make a clay render, as this is an important and useful step in the 3D artist's workflow. So these are the so-called quick preview renders with no materials and no textures on the objects, where the client can see the model, if it is built correctly, to choose the point of views and decide on the mood of the image, whether to be bright and sunny or an evening one, for example. You don't want to surprise your client with the end result so quickly and early. He has to be involved and feel free to take some decisions and the direction of the image. So as those renders are only white grayish, and some artists do not waste too much time making them, but I have noticed that in 6 out of 10 cases, if those clay renders are made with care and love, you get some extra views ordered. Okay, let's see how we do this type of renders. First, let's assign your VRay render and adjust the render settings accordingly. Next, we'll create the material that will be assigned to the whole scene. By pressing M, open the material editor, and let's create a new VRay material. So let's rename it to clay for consistency, and adjust diffuse a bit whiter, but not too much, and because if you make it too bright, you may lose some information if the scene becomes too overexposed. Now let's assign this newly made material to our scene. Press F10 to open the VRay setup, and in the VRay tab under global switches rollout, we check the override material checkbox to enable it, and now let's drag and drop our material to the none slot. Don't forget to make it an instance. This way, every change we make in our material here will automatically be applied in here, so we don't make to copy it every time. Now if we click here on this button, override material, we can see all different types of settings that we can preserve from our materials that we have set up. For example, we can preserve the bump, the refraction. If we want, we can preserve the reflection of the materials as well. I'll turn it off for now. And the opacity, the self-illumination if there is such, and the displacement. Also, if there are some white materials here, by checking this box, it will be displayed as well. If you want your renders to be quicker though, you should uncheck some of the options, as they slow down your render. So as many you tick, the slower it will be. Mind this one. Okay, so we have prepared our scene. Let's check how it looks now. the material is not too bright, so it's visible everywhere. It depends on the white of your sun, so you can adjust this color depending on your scene to be a bit darker or a bit whiter, so that your whiting looks balanced. Okay, so one extra trick to make your model not so flat, so you get the edges of the shapes and make them a bit pop out, is to go, we can go to the environment and here under effects in the atmosphere we can add the VRay Toon, so we can adjust the pixel width that depends also on your scene. I'll leave it like this for now and let's test it. You can see how the objects pop out, so it's a bit like showing the edges of the models, the objects. This is a bit too harsh for me, so I'll adjust the pixel width. Okay, let's test it like 0.5 and I'll adjust the color to be not so dark, to not stand so much out. It will be there, but it will be much more like smooth. Okay, make the normal threshold to 0 and let's test it again. Yeah, you can see that it's there. It's complementary to the image. It shouldn't be too strong. It's to be noticeable. It's just defining the shapes. Okay. Now another thing here is we don't want it on all your layers. From here you can control on which objects you will want this effect. As for example, I have a lot of forest packed objects here, which I don't want to be so much outlined, so I want it only on the geometry which I want to be accented. So for example, here you can change to layers and add the layers that you want to include or exclude, so the which ones are less, it will you choose them. So we will exclude all the forest pack objects. The people I don't want to tune, and this is it. So this will be excluded. Okay, this one is ready. Another trick is to add another render element, which is VRayExtraTex. Let's add it, and here under texture we'll add VRay Dirt. Make an instance so that we can control it. So this one will also show the edges of the objects, but it will be like a gradient, so like something like ambient occlusion, and we can decide how strong it will be and where it should be visible as well. So what we do here is make the subdivisions to something like 12 to make the gradient smoother, make the foul off to something like 10 centimeters. Here the radius can be smaller or bigger depending on what you want. If you want to only have a small uh, around the edges effect, then you should make the radius smaller. If you want it bigger, you can make it bigger. Okay, so let's test this one. This effect is a bit heavier, so the render will take a bit more time. Have this in mind. Let's check how it looks. Yep, it's only around the edges of the objects, and we can use this one in the post-production to enhance the edges. Okay, let's check if how to make it bigger, this band around the objects. So let's make the radius, for example, to 20 and reduce the foul off to 0. Let's see how it looks. Here you have a much bigger gradient, and it will look like ambient occlusion. So you can decide the radius and use this one in your post-production. Okay, we are ready to go. Let's turn on all the layers here and start the renderer. And I'll show you how to make everything in the post-production so that your clay render really pops out and catches the eye of your client. See you in a minute. Okay, the render is ready. It took about 16 minutes to render this clay render. So without the VRayExtraTex element, it was around 6 minutes. So take this in mind. If you're in a hurry or your machine is slower, you may want to skip this element. And the higher the subdivisions of the V-Ray dirt texture, the slower it will get. So you can keep them a bit lower to make it the things faster. Okay, let's save this image out. From here, let's call it like playcam 9 and save it as EXR file. You can check out our video for CryptoMates. There we show you how to use the EXR file and install the free plugin for Photoshop, so you can open it. And now I'll open up Photoshop and show you my workflow of making the post-production of a clay render. You can follow up or use it as a reference wherever you like. Okay, here I have opened the camera in Photoshop with the help of the plugin. So here all the layers here arranged. I will delete some of them that I find unnecessary at the moment. Here is the VRayExtraTex map. You can see how detailed it is, and we can really make some of the objects pop up and define the geometry. Okay, the VRay global illumination, this one will keep. The reflection is empty, so we'll delete. The refraction will keep. This one is empty, so I'll delete the empty ones which are unnecessary for the clay for the moment. This is the effect results. I'll make it a smart object, so when I scale down to 16-bit, this one will remain 32-bit the image and will have much more information in it. So here is the refraction filter. By Ctrl A and Ctrl C I'll copy it, and by out clicking here I'll go to the mask and Ctrl V to paste the refraction filter in the refraction mask. So I don't need it anymore, and this one I don't need it. From here down are all the Cryptomate masks that we can use to select different objects. I'll make it as a group and keep it below the main layer. Now we can change the mode to 16-bit and don't merge the layers, so we can make the post-production of our image as more of the commands are locked when we are working in 32-bit. Okay, now in 16-bit, and we can start. So with the shadows I make them inverted and desaturated. By Ctrl I inverted the image, and Ctrl U to desaturate it. Now I'll do it in color burn and make the fill to 10%. It depends on the image, it can be higher like 20 or 30, so the shadows will be darker and the image will be more with a more strong contrast. The sky I'll make it a bit brighter, so it's something like this. I'll add a mask and make the white is coming from here, so this side could be a bit darker. So now we can make it brighter like this. The refraction, so here are the windows. I'll make it as a screen, so they are not so dark like black holes. The VRay Raw Total Whiting, I'll add the alpha as a mask. Again, copy it and create a mask and paste it here. So this is the VRay Raw Total Whiting, and I'll put it as a soft white and something like maybe 60. You can see how the white is changing and it becomes a bit more realistic, at least in my point of view. For the whiting and the global illumination, I'll set them both to screen and reduce them to something like maybe 20 here. It depends really on the image, so I will leave it like this. You can experiment on your end. This is just a reference to show you how I make my post-production of the clay renders. So here is the extra texture element. It's a bit strong here on the vegetation, so I'll start by making a mask and selecting only the house. It's with the CryptoMaze, it's just like this. It's the node toon for me, and by control clicking you select the mask, you go select the extra texture layer and click here to make a mask only on this one. Like this, I'll select all the elements of the house and add them to the selection. By control backspace you fill with the layer which is here under. If you switch it like this to make it white, so with the one which is below you can fill with control backspace your selection. And I will add the windows as well. Control select and control backspace to fill it. And now I'll set this one to color burn. Let's zoom a bit so you can see the difference. You can see how it's outline. I will reduce it, of course, it's too strong. Something like this to simulate the ambient occlusion. Maybe 30. I can as well add the surroundings and to check how it looks. Yeah, it's like fine touches here and there. Let's see how it will look on the people. I will copy and we'll create a mask only for them. Yeah, I like it like this. If we place it on the whole image, it will get too dark and we don't want this one. We just want it on the right places. Let's add the furnitures and maybe the bikes as well. Yep. Okay, now when we are ready with the post process here, by Control Alt Shift and E we create a copy of all the layers below, like if they're flattened. And now let's go to the filters and add a camera raw filter to adjust the final image. I'll make it more warm, so it's a bit like sunnier and warmer here, accented on the building. I'll up a bit the exposure and the contrast. I'll reduce the highlight so I don't get burnt and I lose information. And I'll up a bit the texture and the clarity. I don't want them to be too high, as it will be overblown and overkill. I'll up a bit the vibrance here in the clay, as I like a bit of tint in the greenery and some colors here and there. Okay, this is in the basic rollout. In the curve I'll do the same. I'll whiten a bit the darks, and in the detail I'll sharpen it, like something around 10 is okay for me. So this is for the image, and here it's how it looks, the final one.
If you did enjoy anything in this video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does. If you haven't subscribed yet, click below and join us. We have some great videos coming up next that you don't wanna miss. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.